A very warm good evening to today's Janavardhani webinar series. Today, the topic for discussion is a conversation with Navi and MG Kondaraman sir on data trust score, an innovative measurement tool in field of privacy. We have with us our very own Navi, who needs no introduction, and Sir Shri MG Kondaraman sir. I'll just give a brief introduction for sir. In public service, Kondan Raman sir. Hope that's right. In public,
Kodanda Raman.
Kodanda Raman. Sir, in public service, I prefer calling him MG. That's
good. That's easy.
MG, yeah. So, in public service as an executive in Customs and Indirect Taxes Department of Central Board of Indirect Taxes (CBIC) since 1981, he worked in all important formations of Customs, Central Excise Service Tax, GST, CES, TAT, Intelligence, Anti-Smuggling Units, and NASAN. Has in-depth knowledge in law and procedures of both direct and indirect taxes. He is regular in-house faculty at NASAN from over 20 years, a master trainer for CBIC, Government of India, and on GST, and guest resource person and faculty in over 50 training institutes and academies. He has trained thousands of officers on taxation and related laws, custom, goods, service tax, excise service tax, foreign trade policy, intellectual property rights, Right to Information, Prevention of Money Laundering Act, Foreign Exchange Management Act, Export-Oriented Units, Special Economic Zones, Criminal Procedure Code, Indian Penal Code, and Cyber Law, etc. Over 100 plus articles by him have been published by various journals and magazines. He has handled over 1,300 sessions on the about topic to various trade bodies, government authorities, and tax practitioners. Known for his pleasing personality and helping nature, Kondan Raman sir is vivid reader of Indian scriptures too. Number of sessions on custom, GST, IPR law, cyber law and forensics, vigilance, RTI, and related matters in NASAN. We welcome you, sir, today, and it's great pleasure to have you. Over to Navi sir and Kondan Raman sir for taking it ahead, the conversation.
Thank you. Sarva Guru Brahma, Guru Raya ji, Vijaya Shankar ji, you can start the day.
Okay. Thank you, Kodan Raman, and thank you, Samavita. So good evening, friends. So today we have actually set it as a conversation between me and Kodan Raman. But anyway, since this data trust score, certain concepts are still new, I thought it is better that I take you through an introductory presentation on data trust score, including what we are trying to do in FDPPI right now. And then we can have a conversation first with Mr. Kodan Raman, and then I'm sure every one of you will have some kind of a question to ask. So this data trust score is a very novel concept which has been suggested in the Indian Data Protection Act as proposed now. There has been other, you can say, frameworks in which a suggestion has been made that there has to be a measurability for a compliance. Either it is for ISO 27001 kind of standards or say for compliance. But Indian law has gone a step further in actually trying to provide exactly how the data trust score may be perhaps computed. Of course, we are expecting that the Data Protection Authority will come up with a detailed guideline as and when the authority comes into operation. However, we have some kind of a thought process right now to develop something which can be a suggested model of data trust score, which we can always fine tune once the government comes up with its own regulations. Now, under the PDPSI concept which we are developing, Personal Data Protection Standard of India, we are trying to incorporate specific guidelines to define the specifications regarding computation of DTS as a part of the audit guidelines. As I have explained in one of the articles, we are looking at PDPSI at three different levels. One level, this PDPSI is called the standard, which means that the organization which wants to implement compliance, this PDPSI through the implementation specifications will be provided a set of guidelines for implementation. So an organization which is having this specifications list with it can go ahead and implement the specifications as they understand, and perhaps they will be close to the compliance. So that is the objective of releasing the PDPSI implementation specifications. As of today, we have come to around 50 specific points with brief descriptions to explain what a particular specification means. Now, these specifications may also be a guideline to the auditors on the one hand. Now, as far as the auditor is concerned, there are two kinds of audit I am trying to look at this point of time. One is, I call this person as a certifying auditor. That is an auditor who certifies that this organization has implemented a compliance program, which is perhaps something which is satisfactory as per the standards. So that is the certification audit. The second is computation of the data trust score as is expected under the Data Protection Act. Now, there is a small difference between the certification audit and you can say DTS assessment. Why this difference is there is, of course, this perhaps is something which I can explain in detail when we discuss PDPSI, which perhaps we will do after some time. But basically, we will have the PDPSI model implementation specifications, which will come from the standard itself. That is, PDPSI standard will have 12 standards and this 50 specifications, which is issued as an annexure, which is like a model implementation specification suggested by the standard itself. Maybe you can look at it as your controls 27002, that kind of a document. Okay. Now, like it has happened in HIPAA, I am looking at this implementation specifications as, in HIPAA we call it as addressable implementation specifications. That is, the organization, after going through the suggested recommendations, which are titled as specifications, will exercise its discretion to implement the specifications if it suits them. That is what HIPAA says. HIPAA has made implementation specifications into two categories: required implementation specifications and addressable implementation specifications. And required specifications have to be implemented the way it has been described, whereas the suggested, addressable specifications may be overridden with the organization's own way of achieving the objective, provided they justify why the implementation specification as suggested in HIPAA, which is a law, is not fully necessary for them, etc. Now, what we have tried to do in PDPSI is we leave all these 50 specifications as addressable specifications, and we would like the organization to either adopt it in toto or leave a couple of things and then create what is called a deviation document and say, I am going to implement these 30 specifications or 35 specifications, other 15 I may not require to do. This is also somewhat similar to the practice we have in perhaps in ISO, that's statement of applicability. Now, what we are expecting here is this deviation document will be a justification for each of the specifications which have been either not implemented or perhaps implemented with a difference. So at the point of audit, now an organization says, I don't want all the 50 specifications, I will have these 35 specifications because I have made an assessment of my risk management system. I will avoid certain risks. I will transfer certain risks through insurance. I will absorb certain risks, and rest of the risks only I would like it to be mitigated by the compliance measures. So this risk appetite of an organization is built into the deviation document, and after this deviation document we will have the set of model implementation specifications suggested by the standard, and on the other side we will have adopted implementation specifications which the organization wants to adopt. Now that is signed off by the management of the organization. We hope it is with reference to their risk appetite, and they know exactly why they are taking only 35 or 40 specifications. A few things they have rejected. I suppose feel that the board of the company has fully understood the consequences and given that. Now the certifying auditor, I would like to look at this adopted specifications and conduct his audit, and then come to a conclusion whether the organization can be certified or not. So this certification audit will depend upon the adopted specifications, which are a modification of the model implementation specifications. At the same time, when the auditor goes through the various documentation and makes up his view on how well the standards are being implemented, he will make a separate assessment on these 50 model implementation specifications and use that for arriving at a data trust score. So data trust score will be arrived at on the basis of model implementation specifications, whereas certification audit will be coming up from the adopted implementation specifications. So just to summarize, what I'm saying is, we have got the standards along with the model implementation specifications. An organization can look at self-implementation without the assistance of any auditor or anybody else. But they will have to interpret what is this model implementation specifications, and if there are any hurdles they face in their operational system, perhaps they will need an expert's assistance. So, but we will make it clear that we have a set of standards and a set of model implementation specifications similar to HIPAA law. Of course, this is not a law, but it's the same way HIPAA has put all the standards and implementation specifications into its books of law so that everybody knows what is it and they will perhaps implement it. Similarly, this PDPSA document with model implementation specification will be ready for self-implementation by an organization. Of course, they are free to use any consultants to actually understand what is the model specification and whether they can implement it by modifying the model implementation specification suitably. All these things a consultant can help. Now, in a certification audit, there will be a gap analysis either by the company itself or as a first step by the auditor. And then this approved implementation, the approved implementation charter, Ramesh, you can just look at the muting. Okay. Now, the approved implementation charter, which is nothing but the model implementation specifications modified into approved implementation specifications and signed off by the top management. Okay, that is what I call as implementation charter, and that implementation charter will be used by the certification auditor to arrive at satisfactory, not satisfactory, or whatever is his assessment. That is for certification purpose. Now, for DTS assessment, the same auditor, because he would have gone through the whole process of assessment, he will use this model implementation charter which is given as part of the PDPSI document, then use that for evaluating whether the organization is having a compliance system in comparison with whatever model implementation specifications have been provided. Now, if the deviation document is created in such a manner that every deviation is justified, then even if the number of adopted implementation specifications are less than the model implementation specification, DTS score may not vary much, because the auditor feels that there is full justification for leaving out a particular control, and then going ahead with the implementation. See, this ability to make changes is essential in this kind of an audit, because we know that we are looking at PDPSI as a sort of a unified platform for multiple data protection regulations. Unfortunately, there are certain differences between multiple data protection laws like a GDPR or a PDPA. So when I've got 50 different implementation specifications, it is quite possible that a couple of such implementation specifications may not apply to a particular law, or in a context-based application of information security, the company has full justification to say why it is not necessary to implement. Therefore, we are giving that flexibility to have an adopted implementation specification different from the model implementation specification. Now, with this kind of a differential approach to this implementation specification, the certification process, as we are now planning to have, which is subject to further discussion and other thing, is now the auditor, after he conducts the audit of, which is a certification audit based on the adopted implementation charter and the DTS evaluation based on the model implementation specifications, sends both these reports to the certifying agency, which could be the FDPPI. Now, the auditee, the organization, will also be asked to send a formal response after the closure of the audit to the certifying agency, which is FDPPI. So we will have the customers, you can say, feedback on the whole audit mechanism. Then this FDPPI will register this. Of course, certification is given by the auditor. We may or may not change that, but registration is mandatory under the certification process. So at the time of registration, FDPPI receives the report from the auditor that he has concluded the audit and what is the DTS evaluation he has given. We also receive the auditee's report. We just keep it for records. We'll archive it. And if the auditee company is agreeable, we may publish the DTS. Otherwise, it will not be perhaps published. So this is what we are trying to think as far as the certification process is concerned. Now, as in the next few days, we are trying to see that this PDPSI version 1.0 document will be released. I am trying to release it first to the members of FDPPI for their exclusive comments, and then we will see whatever changes needs to be done. This PDPSI document will contain one part which is standards, another part which is the model implementation specifications, the third part which is certification methodology as we are planning, and fourth will be the DTS computation methodology, which we are going to discuss a little in detail today. Now, looking at PDPB 2019, we see that under section 7, which is actually a section on the notice to be given before consent, the bill says, where applicable, any rating in the form of data trust score that may be assigned to the data fiduciary under subsection 5 of 29 is one of the things which should be part of the consent related notice. Okay, so the Act expects that the data subject or data principal receives information about the data trust score of the organization which is seeking his personal information. this is actually a beautiful system where the bill considers that the company or the data fiduciary is asking the data subject or the data principal to hand over the asset called personal information, which the company wants to use it and make some profit out of it. So at the same time, they are telling them, this is my rating in terms of data processing capability. So like we disclose credit rating when people raise money out of bonds or something like that, this PDPB expects a personal data collecting data fiduciary to declare what is its DTS score. Okay, so that is the idea in section 7. Similarly, under the transparency clause under section 23, there also it is mentioned that any rating in the form of data trust score should be part of the disclosures which are required at various stages, and that is considered part of the transparency. In fact, I expect that the company will be putting it on their website, and maybe in their shareholders reports, they will say this is our DTS score. So that kind of transparency is what is expected. Now, actually, what is DTS also comes in later in section 29, subsection 5, where speaking about the annual data audits, this Act says, a data auditor may assign a rating in the form of a data trust score to the data fiduciary pursuant to the data audit conducted under this section. Though the word may is used in section 29, considering that at the time of notice and for transparency, the data trust score is considered an important disclosure, it is perhaps good for a company to get this data trust score, and after that it is open to them to either disclose it or not disclose it if it is required. But it becomes a good practice over a period of time where data trust score may become mandatory. As of now, you may say that it is not mandatory. We have to see what the regulations will finally say. But we need to prepare the auditors as well as the companies to get data trust score and disclose it to the extent necessary. Okay. The authority will, of course, specify the criteria how to assign this, but there is some indication saying that having regard to factors mentioned in subsection 2, the authority will come up with the requirements. And what they are saying here as subsection 2 actually talks about what are the objectives of data audit. It says data auditor shall evaluate the compliance of data fiduciary with the provisions of this act, which includes clarity and effectiveness of notices, effectiveness measures adopted under the privacy by design policy, transparency in relation to the processing activities, security safeguards, data breach and response by the data fiduciary, and then timely implementation of the maintenance of records. In other words, if you look at all these 6 or 5 points, 6 points, everything under the compliance requirement of the Act is considered to be audited by the auditor. So it is actually an evaluation of the compliance of the entire Act. So after evaluating this, the auditor will provide a rating, and that becomes, because of transparency and notice requirements, something which is perhaps provided to the public. If the organization is going to ask for registration, submitting a privacy by design policy, I'm sure that the Data Protection Authority will ask, at least in the subsequent years after the mandatory annual data audit happens, it will ask what is your data trust score, and the Data Protection Authority has the right to even publish the data trust score as a part of its records on the public website, where it may register or give a list of all registered data fiduciaries. We will wait and see how much of that will actually happen, but that is envisaged in the Act. So just to summarize, data trust score will be assigned by a data auditor. It will indicate the personal data protection status of the organization. It may have to be mentioned in the audit report. Organization needs to disclose it, and DPA will maintain a website where it may mention the DTS of significant data fiduciaries, at least, not all data fiduciaries. If this is what DTS is, let us see what PDPSI is likely to do to meet this requirement. I told you that we have this model implementation specifications and the adopted implementation specifications. Adopted implementation specification is used by the certifying auditor, whereas the model implementation specification is used by the DTS evaluator. Okay. Now, I have tried to suggest some methodology. What I have tried to do is, we have got these 50 model implementation specifications, which have been distributed into different responsibility centers in an organization. Like some responsibilities belong to the top management, some belong to the DPO, some belong to the IT department, some belong to the legal department, and some to the HR department. And within these 5 groups, I am trying to evaluate the performance. If I am the auditor, then I will be arriving at the total score. Say management, I have out of the 50, about 14 responsibilities have been assigned to the management, 9 to the DPO, 3 to the legal, and 4 to HR, and balance 20 to the IT department. Now, each of these groups will be having a certain weightage, so that whatever is the total score which is assigned to a particular group, it will be further multiplied by the group weightage to arrive at the overall, you can say, the DTS. I'm not going into the details of these titles of this 50 implementation specifications, but just for your indication, I'm saying whatever requires the top management attention, such as constitution of the Data Protection Committee, designation of the DPO, this risk mitigation charter, etc., they are all assigned to them as management responsibilities. Then the DPO will have some specific responsibilities like development of the notice, consent, form, privacy policy, and policies regarding cross-border transfer, DPIA, documentation. So something which is directly the responsibility of the DPO. Legal will have certain responsibilities like contract control, grievance, redressal, and follow-up of disputes. I will be explaining each of these things in detail in the implementation specification document, so I will not go into it right now, but it is just to indicate that there are 5 different groups. Each will have different numbers of responsibilities. Now, HR will have 4, and then balance gets into the IT department. Now, with this, the management, if I assign for these 50 implementation specifications a score of 0 to 10 or something like that, we have got 140 points to be scored for the management, 90 for the DPO, 30 for the legal, HR 40, and IT 200. Now, out of this is the maximum score. The auditor will give an assigned score, and then using the weightage, we will calculate the weightage score. This is the model which I am trying to look at. So this is what I would like to share as the initial information on the DTS. Now we will go ahead with the conversation, and I would perhaps request Mr. Kodandaramman to first shoot whatever questions he has got or whatever views he has got. Then others can also join in a discussion. Okay? Yeah, Kodandaramman.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Nagiji. I'm really happy that all aspects of law have been incorporated now. Of course, you had given me an opportunity to write an article on this, which you published with so much of love. I think all members would have gone through that. So there we have deliberated. But on reading the article, some gentleman rang up and asked me, sir, you are saying for a law that is yet to come, why you are going? DTS is the last target. It may take even 5 years for the DTS to come up, but why do you concentrate on DTS? That was the question asked. I told him, yes, very good. What is the purpose of a PDPA bill? I will try to relate it why we should concentrate on DTS. That's the purpose of my beginning of this talk. I told him, yes, fine, wonderful. I am very, very happy. What is the purpose of PDPA bill? Sir, it is to protect the privacy of an individual. Privacy information pertaining to an individual has to be protected proactively by the government. That's the purpose. Fine. How do you find out that the company is doing so? Then he said, yes. How do you measure? Yeah. Yes, it has to be measured. Then DTS is a measurement. That is the final output. We may be able to get the final output at a later date in a systematic way. But if we have the final target, final goal with us, then it is easier to look into the ingredients. It is just like if I want to arrange a feast, what are the things I'm going to deliver in the feast is more important. Then I can work back. What are the ingredients I should have? Then what is the process I have to adopt? I cannot change it in between, but I can improvise. If there is little salt less, I can put some kara is required, I can do. But the final result also should know. And therefore, we are using this DTS as a methodology to analyze the entire PDPA bill. How? I'm going to tell you now. First of all, PDPA hovers around the fundamental rights of the individual. No doubt about it. That's the only purpose of it. An individual should have a right to life, and right to life is a right to privacy, and therefore it is inevitable at any cost, let whatever may be the other commercial angles, to protect the individual's living habitat, his living persona, or whatever you say, environment, is the most essential thing a democratic country should give. And it's a fundamental right. It is not something given out to him. It is something he can demand, command. Yeah. So it is the principle is one of the element. Fine. With whom he is handling? He is handling with business entities, with multitude of business entities, starting from a small person to a largest possible industry organizations, maybe from a proprietorship to an entity which is an organization, multinational, registered everywhere in the different parts of the country, because we do not have any respect for sovereignty or boundary in the cyber world. You know very well. The third aspect is the so-called the authorities whom we are going to create, how they are going to learn it, because this is a new thing they need to learn. They should know what is their target. To know it, DTS is the right way. Now we have the issues, stakeholders, we can say, the primary owner of this data. As far as personal data is concerned, commercial data, we shall not mix it now. So personal data is concerned, the principal is the owner. His data, including his child for which he is a guardian, or his consent manager, those three people are included in one set. They are the paramount issues to be looked into, cared into. They are taken care by the government, who is to be the administrative authority, through the auditor. Auditor is one of the methods. There are DPOs and the DPA heading the government or leading the government, with auditor. Both should be a main party to decide. On whom he has to decide? The companies of versatile multitude dimensions, multitude sectors, multitude, you cannot even quote them. So when this is the ingredients available, what is the material use is the personal data. Once the personal data becomes a non-personal data, we are not interested much. Then how do you measure is DTS say these ingredients, how they have to move around the processes, fiduciary's hand or fiduciary to another fiduciary, fiduciary into processor or fiduciary in different locations, how it has to be managed so that privacy is maintained at every stage, at every given stage. That is the primary requirement. And DTS, how it should be arrived. First, we should go for a model, a sample recipe, we can call it, to become a lighter evening. So that recipe we can expand for the huge volumes and then come out with a system where DTS becomes the commanding nature. See, some company wants to give the service, the party will ask, the principal will ask, what is your DTS score? With, let us say, even after 5 years. But we have to start like that only now. Otherwise, it is just like a child, only by a mad boy, want to get married. Some people said, no, you marry him, he will be all right. Some people said, no, 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 you let him get all right, then we will marry him. Both will not happen. Somehow we have to jump. So we have to start. And now we have started long back. I'm really stunned when he gave me the series of articles. I could not even digest 50% of them. I'm telling you, the honest approach by Navi is something phenomenal. He has already reached the end. I can say he is visualizing the end, how DTS should look in. That's his vision. Here, how do we? Today he has explained the various sections, which I do not want to take it again. But my prerogative is, through DTS, we should know the responsibility of the auditor. We should know the responsibility of data protection authorities. We should know the rights of the principals and how this process goes on, so that we will have a holistic combined view, a bird's view. In Kannada, some gentleman recently said, Simha Avalokana. Lion will not look into each and every part of the forest. It goes on the top. From there, he looks. That is the Simha Avalokana where Vijay Shankarji has given. And therefore, I told him, still you are not convinced about the DTS, which you are going to get it. He said, sir, I am very much sorry, sir. You people are having very good sight ahead. I said, yes. We want to be the first Indian law where we will judge the people with proper scoring, where there is no scope for any arbitrariness. Now, the second aspect I will come. When I told you heterogeneous group, this is, here today, it is further simplified by our Navi, saying that we need a certifying authority in between, where certificate auditor, then the regular auditor. Both places we can fill in, no doubt, certificate auditors. But I go a step further. Don't think otherwise, because a lot of companies have retainers. I want to develop the youngsters into a group where we can be compliance managers or compliance auditors, where the company can hand over the entire aspect about privacy itself to us, where we can develop our youngsters to that forum, where we will have them as retainers. We can have them as, those companies can be under the FDPPI return, paying a regular monthly, this one to the FDPPI. And there, the responsibility will be becoming how to, even to sort out which are the essential ones for the data or not. Because as I told you, in India, the various sectors, they are all, none of them will require all these 50 or 60 parameters. They may require, some of them maybe 5 or 6, some of them I just try to look in. Some of the organizations, they will go without any person to guide them. And second, it is not mandatory for them to have DPOs, data protection officers. Then who is going to guide them? So there we can chip in. We can have youngsters, especially who have done cyber, this one has their graduation. A group of people, we can develop them with this challenging aspect, where we will become compliance auditors for so many companies all over India, different companies. We can talk, speak for them depending upon the amount of data they are going to generate. On that basis, we can fix that in a transparent way, and we can have our boys working towards it for each of the companies, to giving care to the children, to these fiduciaries, to these companies. Then our FDPPA standards can be driven to remotest possible sectors of India. Then only it is possible, because we have to send the manpower to that level where we will be able to deliver it, and that comes through their having compliance auditor in the form of PDPPA. So there, here I'm trying to give a finishing talk of me. These are all wonderful developments. We have started at the right earnest, very well ahead of the whole thing, but we need to develop youngsters to become the certifying auditors capacity, and we should have retainership of all these companies. They will not go away at all. We do not want about the big people. They will handle it, multinational people or this one. I am concerned with the 80% of the Indian companies, because if I looked into GST law, Indian revenue, 80% of the revenue comes from the 20% of the units, and 20% of the revenue comes from 80% of the units. We should cater the need of those people, 80%, who are not revenue earners as far as tax is concerned, but we should try to establish that 80% sector where we will be able to move those people. This 20 sector people, they can have DPOs, they can have all facilities, they can have people who will handle it day to day, but we should concentrate on this sector. And this is the way I assume is the method we should adopt. That's my opinion today, sir. Thank you. Narayana.
Thank you. Before others can raise a question, I would like to say that sometime in January, we will be organizing a training program on this data auditing, where I will be explaining this PDPSI framework thoroughly. Go specification by specification, that is 50 specifications. I will try to explain. Then people will understand how it covers the entire gamut of the compliance requirement. Then rest of the thing which we are doing in DTS is assigning a value to that based on my evaluation as an auditor, which I'm having a range of 10 points only. So within the 10 points, so perhaps 5 this way or that way, a person will be able to assign, and then all these 50 will get merged with the weightage, and there is a quantification of the subjective evaluation. I hope it will solve the purpose, at least to start with. Yeah. Any questions from others? Namit has a question, which is who will watch the watchers? I don't know whom he's calling as watchers. If you are looking at the certifying agencies like the FDPPI and its auditors, now it is FDPPI's responsibility to prepare the auditors with the relevant knowledge, which is what I am trying to do through training programs. Hopefully persons who have completed the module I and module G know everything about the law, not only of India, but others. We are thinking of having the module T, and at the same time, we are ready for module A now with the audit. So with those kind of knowledge, we will be having perhaps lead auditors who will be ready to take on this responsibility. In fact, as of now, we can implement the PDPSI for even GDPR compliance. I'm sure the few people who have been closely in touch with in discussing this model would be willing to actually undertake a GDPR audit and put it under the PDPSI format, and we can always have some test results coming out of it. DTS may not be used by the company, but as an auditor, when I conclude the audit, I want to say this is my net score, whether you like it or not. Okay, this is what I'm going to say. Yeah. Yeah.
I want to add one.
Yeah.
See, what auditors we were planning were that it should be duly recognized by the government. Now, becoming a compliance auditor doesn't require any recognition by anybody.
We will do it. We will do it after the DPA comes into existence. See,
yes.
See, now we are actually trying to force the hands of DPA to some extent to say that we are already into it. Okay, you may say that we are doing things early, and many other people may also think like that. But I say that that is testing our own skills. Now, tomorrow, when the DPA actually comes, we are expecting the DPA, even if the law is passed in the month of March, DPA will come in after 3 months, and the DPA to be really start working and put up a model code and practice for DTS, it will be another 1 year. So in this 1.5 years, which is available to us, we can go back to DPA and say, this is our experience. We have done some 20 audits or 30 audits. This is our experience. Perhaps we will be actually educating the DPA on how this has tried out. It is let them take it as a model and then revise it, doesn't matter. But at least we will be contributing it to the DPA. And at that time, if we are accredited, then we will be one of the persons who will be in a way accredited by the regulator. This kind of accreditation is there in all laws. GDPR also talks about it, but nobody is ready as of now. No supervisory authority has perhaps worked out in detail. In fact, what we are doing in this implementation specification list is something which nobody else has actually published. Maybe individual auditors would have done it and they are selling it for a price as part of templates and other things. Now, we can also do that after some time, but at least part of it, we will be placing it in the public domain. And before, when the DPA comes into existence, so there is some, you can say, test bed. Let us take it as test bed. I am not saying that whatever we say will be fully 100% accepted by the DPA, but at least if they come back and say you have to make these changes, then it will be good. It will be easy. Okay, Ramesh, you have got something to say.
Sir, Navi sir, my question is, why are we restricting the auditors into kind of, one is only can do compliance and one can do data audit, data trust score?
No, same auditor will do a compliance audit based on the adopted implementation specifications. Okay.
Correct.
And in the same exercise, he will separately take the standards which we have given, that is what I have called as model implementation specifications, and try to assign scores. So one audit, it will generate both. One is done at the instance of the company. If the company says, I will take the risk, why are you bothered? You say something, I am not going to do that. I am going to do it in a different way. You as an auditor is saying that then it will increase your risk. And that person says, okay, I will cover that risk either by insurance or I will reduce my, I will avoid certain kind of risk. For example, in a financial transaction, I may say this risk process, I will restrict to only people who have a financial commitment of 5,000 rupees, 2,000 rupees like that. Okay, like when you are passing a credit card on this NFC system, you have a limit of 5,000 or whatever is that. So I as an organization may adopt other measures to contain the risk, and then I'll tell you, so don't worry about that. I will absorb the residual risk. Then you as an auditor don't have to be rigid and say, no, you have to have this, like what State Bank of India is having. I'm a cooperative bank. You are saying that you do it as per State Bank of India standards, which is not economically feasible, or in terms of risk perception also may not be ideal. So I am saying, let us give an opportunity to the organization to look at its top management level, its risk appetite, and then say, okay, you have reasonably suggested all the 50 which are model implementation specifications. Ideally, I should implement everything as you are saying. But for such and such a reason, give me an opportunity to make some changes. Then I will say that it is your call. Now, based on your call, whatever is the adopted implementation specifications, I will make an assessment as a certifying auditor. And when I give a certificate, I will say, this is the implementation charter given by the organization, which says these are the modifications they have done. Based on that, I have audited and I consider it as satisfactory or something like that. That will be the compliance audit. But on the background, I will also compute the DTS. I may give them a low DTS if they have ignored a lot of important points in the implementation specifications. And I say, it is satisfactory as per your own implementation charter. But in terms of DTS, you score, let us say, only 50 or 40 or something like that. It is for the organization to decide whether they should try to improve their DTS or not. So one auditor, 2 reports, one used for certifying the compliance, another for DTS.
So what I understand is there could be a possibility that that auditor might stop only with the certification process if the organization doesn't want them to, go for the DTS. Yeah.
Our system will say that you have to submit your DTS to us, the certifying agency. Whether it is disclosed or not disclosed is a secondary thing. And in fact, this brings some accountability to the auditor also, that he has looked at all the 50 points. He has not done a certification just by receiving some money. He should not issue a certificate. No. So I want him to commit and say that, okay, point number so and so, I've given this assignment. If necessary, the certifying authority will re-audit. If I am not satisfied, for example, I'm asking the customer also to give a review, feedback. Now, when I have the feedback, when I see this report, which I'm not asking for a detailed report, I'm only asking for this implementation charter and the DTS and the auditor's view of whether it is satisfactory, good, or very good, or whatever is that. That's all. Okay.
Yes.
Now, if I get a doubt that something needs to be checked, I, as a certifying agency, should have the ability to say that I will go back and have a chat with the company executives once again and see whether I will accept this for registration or I will have my own re-audits. I will assign another auditor and say, please make a review of this. Is what I am envisaging. I don't know whether this system is there in other ISO audit system, but I would like to introduce that. Then only the control of the certifying agency will be there.
Great. Great.
Okay.
Got it.
Yeah.
I would like to add one more point. Shall I, sir?
Yeah. Please go ahead.
See, now as soon as the DPA comes, they may not allow everybody to audit. There may be an entrance exam. They may have a group of people who will pass that exam qualifying for it. We need not worry about qualifying and getting an auditor. All of our people would have prepared and they may get in. Even if they cannot chip in, we can remain as compliance auditors in the day one itself. From the beginning, a company says, sir, we want some advice on privacy. We can have these powerhouses or knowledge houses built, readily available to cater to the need. For example, if there is a proprietary concern or a small scale industry with 5 crores or 5 lakhs or 50 lakhs per month, something like that. If they want, they cannot go for anybody and they are not supposed to by law have DPO and they may be or may not be exempted. We do not know. So in that event, when they want an advice, we can have that as a compliance auditor group itself, as a general group. From there, whoever has passes the certificate examination, they will be the auditor for the everything. But we can keep training them from January itself. With this in hope, we will have compliance auditors available with us in abundance, and they can easily get into auditor, duly exam passed auditors, duly certified by them, whatever conditions they are going to prevail by the rules. So like that, we should plan now itself so that we need not get disappointed whether FDPPA is recognized by them or not. We will recognize by our work, by our tasks, by our approach. That's what I wanted to emphasize.
Yeah. Other questions?
Navi said.
Yeah.
You were talking about that, no, in the 50 items what we are planning.
Yeah.
The organization will be a discretion to adopt some, not to adopt some.
Yes.
So that depends upon the risk as a risk assessment.
Risk appetite.
Risk
appetite of the organization.
There, okay, risk appetite and risk assessment and the risk methodology adapted. But now, when an auditor to go there for audit of the compliance or the data score, the discretion will be coming the picture. Say something, a company may say, this is not there at all for me.
If I accept that logic, that's why I said deviation document or this statement of applicability kind of a thing should be there. If I accept their logic after discussion, I will accept their view. So then, if 10 points are there for that particular thing, I may give the entire 10 if that is not applicable to them.
No, I'm not talking about points. If auditor has to involve in a discussion and decide a factor required or not, then the auditor role will be again become a consultant role.
No, not necessary. See, the auditor will receive the this one, whatever this charter, implementation charter, and that implementation charter will deviate from the model implementation this thing, and the company will give a paragraph of its explanation why it has done or not done. If that has to be understood. It is like gap analysis being discussed when you have a gap. Yeah, Ramesh.
Navi sir, just to add here, you already covered that you quoted exactly the 27,001 and 27,002 there, that wherein when we arrive at the statement of applicability, the organization has got the right to say whatever is not applicable with exclusion and proper justification. Now, let's say I go as an auditor, which Mr. Adupu would have gone through so many times. I go as an external auditor. I look at the statement of applicability, and then let's say that they said it is applicable, might not be applicable. Vice versa is also true. And hence there is a point of discussion happening. Now, as an auditor, I tell them, you take a call and then come back to me. Maybe I will postpone the audit and come out. There is nothing called consulting here. With their understanding, with their limited knowledge on their processes, they had taken a decision. And that's what you are going to discuss there with the organization. Same thing you are talking about here. Am I making sense, Adupu sir?
You are making a mess, but see, in the reality, no, when we go to the client,
Yeah.
all this aren't work out, as you know, right?
Why?
See,
Why?
they have their own way of looking at the things and coming.
Be with me. I just wanted to quote one example. Last week, an kind of big organization in Bangalore, having office in US also, I was reviewing their statement of applicability exactly on a particular e-commerce. If I have to tell you, A dot whatever, yeah, 14 year transactions on the web, what we call. They said it is not applicable, and fortunately, it was very much applicable to them. I said, how do you want me to proceed? They said, my consultant. I said, hold on. I don't know who is your consultant. I have nothing to do with that. Now, this is applicable for your kind of processes, your kind of services, etc. I said, now you need to come back to me. You need to review, because as you and me know, the statement of applicability plays a vital role in 27001. And I said, I won't be able to proceed further. And then I have informed the certification body. They had discussed with the organization. They have been given with the time of 2 weeks, and I'm going to do the audit after 2 weeks. I think we need to take a call. It's nothing consulting there. They have misunderstood the concept. Now they are blaming the consult. Yeah,
because the consultants are not that knowledgeable as auditors.
Absolutely.
This problem is coming in most of the cases when we look at the reality with organizations.
I think that is why Mr. Navi is talking about very categorically that all the people who wanted to become the auditor as part of this, he said 2 things. Yeah, Module I, Module G course, number 1. They need to have a kind of good understanding of the law. Number 2, he is also talking about training on PDPSI. One has to go through all the 50 specifications and try to understand. And obviously, Navi sir, it's a big challenge with Mr.
I went on mute.
Ramesh
went on mute.
The skill, the competence he is talking about is very important. Yeah, it's not going to be like any other course. I'm with Mr. Adupu.
Yeah, Mr. Kodanraman, that's why I suggest that there will be a separate group of people who will provide that consultancy.
Correct.
Okay, they are not senior enough to be called auditors, but they may help in the implementation.
Yes.
Okay.
Sir, I have one more thing to add. Can I add, sir?
Yeah.
I told you it is a heterogenic people whom we have to cater. Let us take an example of a trader, an educational institution, a medical service, or a financial service. Can you use the same trick? Don't you think different folks require different folks?
Yeah.
That flexibility is what is available here.
Excellent.
Yeah. Now, Sudarshan, you have to bring in your knowledge.
Yeah. Well, this is something slightly different from.
We are looking into only privacy aspects here. Privacy as the primary item. Privacy by trader. Privacy by education. Privacy by medical. Privacy. Only privacy issue. I'm not concerned with the commercial angle here. So when you look into this, you cannot have the same stroke with so many people.
Yeah. Correct.
Simply bizarre, or you can say it's funny. So we should not. We should specialize here only, where we should be able to go.
Let us hear Sudarshan.
Sir, thank you. So this is coming back to your original point. You were mentioning about the timeline that DPA actually may be appointed sometime in June, July, then it may take another few months to get ready. The government, the present government is having a number of projects in the other fields like infrastructure building, where they call PPP, public-private partnership model. They may be open to an idea. Now, suppose we have probably the best talent in privacy, coming together under your guidance and leadership. If we prepare the systems ready, if we have a scheme ready, if we have the auditors ready, maybe as FDPPI, we could approach DPA to outsource the entire thing to us. That will be a real recognition.
Great hope, sir. Great hope. Sudarshan sir has a lot. Great hope.
No, actually,
sir.
this,
No, it's not, I'm not joking.
Yeah.
Not just so
People
hopefully.
we have,
You have
they
a
have so
hope.
much of experience, they have so much of respect in the society.
Yes.
Sudarshan sir, on a
Sure.
lighter, Sudarshan sir, Ramesh, on a lighter side, I said once to Mr. Navi, I remember, I was thinking that Mr. Navi would be the first DPAI of India. You know? Trust me.
I am age barred. I am
Yeah.
age barred. Okay.
That's what Navi sir said. Yeah,
So that's
possible,
why-
possible.
That's why I'm free to express. Okay.
Sir, bar will be registered.
I'm still confident.
Navi
I'm
sir.
willing to do the groundwork for you. I'm still confident the way you have
Absolutely,
That is true.
absolutely.
There is a
definitely possible to
provision.
get the whole thing
Yeah.
outsourced to us. in the
Yes,
way.
sir. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
In
But we
fact,
should be ready, we should do our homework now.
Yeah. In fact, Sudarshan,
Really?
this you talked about the current running projects. Government in that national health program, they have already implemented most of the PDPB into their policy statements. So it's possible that some of them will go ahead and try to implement certain things. I am also providing some consultancy to the Karnataka government here. So there may be individual, say, islands of projects, even in the government sector, where they're thinking of being compliant with PDPB, even if it comes after 6 months or so. So
Okay.
some of the companies also may think ahead like that. See,
Yes.
And Sudarshan ji, Yuddha Kala Shastra Bhasa, that should not happen.
Yes,
That's why
correct.
we should
Yeah,
prepare. That's correct.
See,
Sudarshan
people who
Chakra-
understand the complexities know it will take an organization 6 to 9 months to adapt to a given statement of even if you use 50 or 114 controls, you give it to a company to implement it and get a satisfactory certification. It is not an overnight job. So it is actually takes a long time. So whoever wants to start early, they will be better off. That is our viewpoint. Yeah, Anil, you have got any views, Anil? And of course, we have, I think, our DPO also here, Rakesh.
Nothing specific as of now. I'm still trying to digest the DTS part of it. So maybe I will have some more views once I go through the details of PDPS and how to actually calculate a DTS.
Yes.
I will try to do a kind of pilot for myself and then I will
Do it.
start with it.
I have been thinking on this for more than 2 years now. I think when PDPA 2018 version came, I started discussing the DTS, that 5x5 model or whatever I suggested at that time. Now that has evolved over a period of time with all these discussions. Please try that and I will be quite happy. You get me a client, we will give a compliance of a client with this model. Then it will be the starting point.
Case study.
It's a good model, and I think it is the best model which will suit to the requirement of all organizations everywhere. Only thing we have to learn ourselves. We have to digest ourselves. We have to imbibe it in our psyche that okay, this is what it is, and there are a lot of things. It covers almost everything. All those 5 departments, top management to IT, 10 points, 15 points, 20 points. All those things are covered in that, and basically it's a good design. It has to be adopted. That is the only thing. It is easy to adopt. Even the companies can do in-house. They are checking, okay, this is what we feel. Now let external auditor do it, and then let's compare where the difference, where the gap is, where the understanding is different.
Yeah. In fact, you wait until the Sankranti, that is after Sankranti, I would like to schedule a training of this, okay? Because normally up to that time, we don't want to start any new project, okay? So second week of January, after that, we will all discuss and have this training. As has been our tradition, the first training will always be free to our members. So we will discuss all these aspects. I will take inputs from people like you who have got so much of experience, you and Sudarshan and others, and we will have the final version, whatever is required. Then when I explain those implementation specifications with the explanatory notes which I have prepared, perhaps it will be more clear to you. Now, why I am saying something in a particular manner, because see, wording is very important. Okay, we have to revise the wording so that people without much of a background will be able to understand. That is a continuous process. We have to keep on refining that. But for refining that, you should all try to understand why I am saying a certain thing, and that will happen only when we have a detailed interaction. So I will try to share that document to the extent possible, but actually we can sit across a training session and debate on each issues. Then perhaps we can look at language modification and fine tuning the language. That also we will do. Okay. Yeah. Anybody else? Amit Kumar, of course. Any feedback on Amit or Leme? Or you leave it as legal issue and pass it over? This is not a legal issue. It is purely technical.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have some comments today.
Fine. And others are waiting for you to finalize the other project. Then we will have a different discussion on legal aspects. Okay,
Yes.
okay, fine. Yeah. Now, Dorai was there. Yeah, Dorai, you must have some thoughts. And others who are, yeah, Dorai, yeah.
Sorry, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Sir, well thought through the kind of scoring, how the data fiduciaries and organizations are going to get, and how we are going to manage. So these things are very, very well drafted. Maybe I'm looking for the training program which you are planning to conduct in the second week of Jan. I have posted one question here. Maybe you can refer that. That is
Yeah,
right.
I just saw that. See, we have to segregate the fiduciaries as per our law, that is Indian law, as significant data fiduciaries and guardian data fiduciaries and social media intermediaries, that is the third category. Then rest of the people, that is as far as Indian law is concerned, this is how they are categorizing. Other laws like GDPR and others, they don't categorize the data controllers like that. They only have those who process sensitive information or special categories and others. That is perhaps only thing. But maybe even there, people who process predominantly minors data, you can always have some special thought to them, because the controls which they have to implement are different. For example, verification of the age. Now that is one control. It is applicable to a guardian data fiduciary in India or a company with under GDPR predominantly processing children's data. For others, it may not be that relevant. So in fact, there's an example of why we need a distinction, because even that in some countries it will be 13 years plus, in another 16 years plus. So our controls will have to be capable of mutating to the requirements of the respective data protection laws. That is why I want to keep this as addressable. So if we say, no, this is the only way it can be done, we will be unnecessarily looking at confrontation with the company. Whereas we give our logic and they feel that I will absorb that risk. For example, I will have only 2% of people who are minors. So don't talk about verification of age in a manner in which it will never be, 100% perfect. It is economically not feasible. If he says like that, I have to say that is the risk appetite decision he has taken. He's going to absorb. If tomorrow there is any issue there, the company is taking the responsibility, and maybe they will discuss with a cyber insurance company and say that we have left this to be covered under insurance. So as an auditor, I will be happy if they show me that insurance policy. I will say that, yes, I agree that, okay, you have covered that risk. You may not mitigate that risk, but you have transferred that risk. So as an organization, you have covered the risk. Okay, that is what I am trying to look at. So this, yeah.
I got that, Navi sir, but in that case, will the DTS score will goes down because they are not, they are accepting some of the categories, or say for example, in your example.
If the auditor is not satisfied, instead of giving him 8, I may give him 6. Yes, there may be a change. But if I'm satisfied with what they are giving as a logic, if I say 2%, 1% is okay, it's acceptable, you are covering it, then I may not reduce it. See, that is the subjectivity which the auditor has to use.
But one sec, sorry to interrupt, Navi sir. In my opinion, if you leave something to the auditors as subjectivity, then it may lead into some controversies, because instead of that, if we cover that globally as much as possible, whatever, maybe no, as MG sir told, we can improve going forward. Maybe no, we are starting now. We are not going to change anything, but we can improve that as we grow, as new regulations are coming over the time. But instead of leaving it to the subjectivity, or it is subjective to auditors, we can have them.
Say legal, now 1 minute, legal compliance is always subjective. You cannot make it entirely quantitative. Say, if you tell me that you put a software and tell me how much percentage comes here or there, then that is a technical issue. You can have exact this thing. But in legal this thing, if you say I have got a consent form, is it in accordance with the law? Now, what are the words and other things? There is going to be inherently a subjectivity in any legal compliance activity. Now we are trying to quantify, reduce the subjectivity by making that 1 point as 1 out of 50. So it has got only a 2% coverage in that. Within that, some weightage may be different. So you are reducing the subjectivity, because each of these implementation specification contributes, even if the weightage is ignored, only to 2% of the overall rating if it goes wrong. So instead of giving him 8, if I give him 6, that 2 points will be only resulting in, say, 0.04% or something of the total rate. So subjectivity gets divided into this multiple this thing. That is one way of reducing the subjectivity. Okay, so but other than that, if you want to quantify a legal listing, say that's why normally I used to suggest most of these things that we will not go for quantification of an audit. We will simply say good, bad, ugly kind of a thing. Only the subjective this thing, red zone, green zone, or something like that. But now DTS has become a requirement under Indian law. For others, it is not required. So we may leave it at subjective level. We don't have to actually force the company to give out DTS if it is not under Indian law. If that MNC is working in India, then if DTS becomes essential, they have to do it. Now, when you say MNCs, your question is, do we need to categorize data fiduciaries like MNCs or India-based? Now, I am categorizing the data. Okay, we have got a classification system, which I have discussed earlier. Now, the personal data itself, I am giving a tag of GDPR data, PDPA data, and then putting them in separate silos. And therefore, if I work out a DTS under GDPR for the same company will be different from DTS for PDPA. I'm looking at it as a ODC kind of a system, which of course the Indian law permits that also. So within the company, there is one GDPR division, there is one Indian PDPA division, there is an Australian division or whatever is that. And I am going to make the changes in the classification and see even the consent form, let's say privacy policy. A privacy policy which I draft for GDPR client may not be 100% similar to the privacy policy I draw for an Indian PDPA. For example, you look at the rights of the data subjects. The rights of the data subject itself is different. No, GDPR will have 4, I have got 3.5 kind of a thing. And maybe in Brazil, there is a list of 8, different rights. So the consent form, the notice form will differ from one law jurisdiction to another law jurisdiction. So I am saying I am going to classify the personal data and apply the specific law to that. In fact, this is what I am going to explain in the implementation specification notes. Whereas the main thing will say that you should have a consent form, you should have a notice. Now, notice for a GDPR data is different from notice under CCPA and a notice from Indian PDPA. I am going to accommodate that in this system as if I am doing 4 audits in a single audit, depending upon the legal jurisdiction. So if it is an MNC, if the data is brought into India, if they are having only foreign data, I will ask them, take your exemption under section 37, leave out our PDPA. Okay, that will be one of my recommendations, or as Kodandaman says, it will be recommendation of our team. Okay, because if I go there as an auditor, you say I should not suggest something like that. But I will ask them the question, this provision is there, have you taken this provision? If you have taken the provision, I will say that this data doesn't have exposure to PDPA at all. Okay, so maybe that kind of thing is there. Indian law has this significant data fiduciary, guardian data fiduciary, social media intermediaries, and others. So that distinction will be required here, and actually registration will be required for most of these people. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thanks for the detailed explanation.
Yeah, Namit, any other this thing?
No, sir. Thank you so much. It was very well explained by you this time. I really liked the explanation, the last explanation what you gave. Also looking forward to the January sessions. What you proposed.
Yeah. There is a lot of technology re-architecturing which I will be suggesting. See, this when I suggest this, I know that companies are not ready today. So some of the suggestions I will give, if I am a compliance consultant, is you have to change your technology system to accommodate this classification, other things. So
absolutely, sir. Yes.
Maybe that is required. It will take time, or I will have a technology company which will work with me and prepare the tools which can be used as a plugin. That is a business opportunity. Okay, but the thought process is that even if it is necessary to make some changes in the technological architecture, it is worth doing it so that the compliance burden will be reduced. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Samyogita is worried.
No. It's just, no. Thank you for that insightful conversation on data trust score. It was a very great conversation. Before we close the session and Samir gives vote of thanks, would like to make a small announcement. Starting January for the Janvardhini webinar series, we are looking forward for speakers who can share the knowledge in the field of data privacy. So kindly share any topic that you would be interested with sharing within our team. Kindly get in touch with me. You can message me or probably email on ftppi.com, the email ID Navi sir has, and we'll connect with you. And we would like you all to be the speakers and share us the knowledge in the field of privacy. So over to Samir Mathur for vote of thanks. Over to you, Samir. Thank you, MG sir and Navi sir.
Thanks, Amita. So on behalf of all of us present here and the FDPI team, I'd like to thank Navi sir and Mr. Kodandaram for their insightful session today. I think we had a very hotly debated session today on the very hotly debated and new topic called DTS. And I'm happy that we are having a proactive discussion on this topic because, like Navi sir said, this is an emerging topic which not many people are aware of. I like Mr. Kodandaram's statement that we will get recognition by our work that we do. So this is, I think, a very important statement, and the kind of work we've been doing for the last year, more than a year, and the work that we are going, we will surely be able to create a mark for FDPI in the months to come. So thank you once again and see you next Wednesday. Thank you.